We had one event where we had 5 people step out of a wheelchair with 5 different independent conditions: spinal cord injury, myasthenia gravis, MS, just all these different conditions. Because it's a footprint in consciousness, and the person's invariably going to say, if they can do it, I can do it as well. And that's exactly how you begin to change the collective consciousness. The collective becomes conscious of another possibility. And you can't have consciousness without energy. And that literally begins to change the energy of possibility.
Hello, hello, Heal Squad. We are back with Dr. Joe Dispenza today. And if you missed part 1, be sure to check it out because he was amazing as usual. He shared why our feelings, like our fear, can sometimes trigger chronic conditions, how thoughts alone can switch on the body's stress response, sometimes even leading to disease. I understand that because I have lived in fear my whole life, and that stress response definitely did not do me any favors in the health department. But also how those same thoughts, right? If thoughts can make you sick, they can also make you well. So he gave us one important daily practice that will help that change. But today we're going to talk more about how to master our emotions, to master our creations, including love, and using love even in the most difficult of circumstances. And I have seen it work, my friends. He is going to share some incredible testimonials in this episode. A woman who regrew an organ. Guys, it's insane when you go to these seminars and you see those people stand up and tell their stories, and they are very powerful. And he's going to share his top testimonials with us, and it's very inspiring, had us all in tears. And I think it will help you level up what you think is possible. So today's chat is really about upgrading your mindset and stepping into the life you were meant to live, the life you really, really want. And it's so possible. So let's get started. In this next part, I really would love to talk about another thing that helped me at that last event, and that was, what would love do? And I was in a really angry place, and I was really hurt. Uh, the cycle of hurt is adorable because I don't know, life can be so hard when people hurt you. And it's hard to think that, there are very extreme situations of people hurting others. How do you reconcile that with you're the creator of your life, right? How do you reconcile? Illness kind of can be a little easier because your explanation of all those emotions, all that fight or flight, naturally, the wheels come off the wagon. That might be a little bit easier for people to grab, but for people who have had extreme situations, whether they've been raped or cheated on or whatever it is, where they've been really, really hurt, how do you kind of grasp, and does the creator of your own life apply there? And then how do you apply love? Because I was in a situation that I was hurt by somebody, and I remember thinking, okay, well, all right, I trust Dr. Joe and it's worked, so I have to try love. Okay, what would love do? And it fucking worked. It worked amazing. It's a little hard when you're angry to get there, but then you're like, wait, this anger is hurting me. And
Yeah.
when you start to realize you have the power because it's your field and it's how you want to feel and what you want to invite into your life, then you start to kind of shift things. But help me out with the beginning part here for people.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I can tell you this, that we have studied a lot of people that have had really, really abusive and horrible pasts, right? And if you want really to become, you want courage, the universe is going to set up every condition in your life to challenge you to be worthy of courage, to be fearless. You're going to have to earn that. If you
Ooh,
want
I just got
patience,
chills.
if you want patience, that's your quest, then you have to be initiated into patience. There's no other way that you'll actually get good at patience unless you practice. So there's got to be challenges and conditions that drive us to that. Now, me personally, I think the soul's journey more than anything else is to find love. And the only way we're going to do that is to practice unconditional love. And our research shows that when people have really horrible conditions, abusive past, rape, molestation from childhood, night terrors, panic attacks, 30 hours a day, serious health conditions in their sexual organs. When a person begins to open their heart and they understand that once energy makes it to the heart, this is what our research shows. The heart immediately sends a wave of information right to the brain, right to the amygdala. That is the survival center of the brain. The heart actually tells the brain it's over. The past is over, and it resets the baseline for trauma in the brain. And the consequence of that is when the person looks back at their past, so many times they'll say, I don't want to change anything in my past. I don't want to change anything in my past because it brought me to this moment. That's the moment the past no longer exists. So if a person truly wants as a soul to know love, then they are going to be initiated into love. And we're going to have numerous opportunities to practice that because our journey back to source, our journey back is our journey back to love, right? Pure love. That's where it is.
Dr. Joe, do you think that anyone is consciously thinking that I want more patience or I want more love? I feel like we're generally pretty unconscious. But is anybody actively really searching for that? Like I know I was pretty impatient and I have become very patient. I mean, for me, maybe not for others. I don't know. I haven't, scored myself, but do you think people are actively thinking of that?
No, I think two things. One thing, I think the soul negotiates that before it enters a physical body. Like, challenge me. I saw my last couple acts, and I got to get better at this. And I want to be challenged. I want the circumstances to drive me to love. And I want it to be challenging enough that it causes me to be uncomfortable to make those choices. So one thing, I do think that there's a negotiation that takes place on a certain level, say for a child that's abused at an early point. But I do think what we consciously want is to be happy, right? What we consciously want is to feel safe. What we consciously want is to be able to relax and to enjoy life, right? I do think that a lot of times when people come up against their own programs, the subconscious programs are happening behind the scenes of our awareness that are producing challenges in our life that we're not aware of, right? So a person can have an unconscious program that they're not worthy. And because they're not
Mhm.
worthy, they will pick a circumstance in their life, not consciously, that will reflect that exact circumstance for them to feel unworthy. And it may be just some kind of recognition from something that's happened to them in the past that seems familiar to them that they've confused with love, and they make that choice. But the lesson is still there. Their lesson still is that they through that experience, they have to learn that they are worthy, right? So the only way that they'll know that is to put them in a circumstance where they have to make a choice. And either you get it or you don't, and you
And
come
then the
back
pattern
and you
continues.
go again, right? You just take on another body. You know, you're the same soul. You'll make the same mistakes, the same choices, and you got to find a way out. So I think that's one of the things I've learned, you know, that has been so really eye-opening to me is that so many people in this work, uh, they live lifetimes. They live lifetimes in 7 days in the immersive experience. And the crazy part about it is at the end of 7 days, we have so much data that we absolutely know that people change at the end of 7 days. We do facial recognition analysis, they have different faces. We do voice analysis, the harmonicity of their voice is way different of a child. Their language is different. Their microbiome is different. Thousands of metabolites are upregulated in their blood. Their brain is different. Their heart is different. Um, their immune system is different. Yeah, they're making natural pain relievers. They're anti-carcinogenic chemicals, antiviral chemicals, all being upregulated in the body when a person feels love. So if you're going to weigh living in survival and living by those base emotions, nothing wrong with that. It's just that we've done that enough times. If you're truly if you're interested in awakening, right? Really awakening to love. And that's, the heart is the springboard. It's not the end, it's the beginning of the divine in us. If you're truly willing to reason that and say, okay, am I going to spend the rest of my life not forgiving the past and have a story that goes along with it? And the majority of that story isn't even the truth, that people are reliving a miserable life they never even had just to excuse themselves from changing.
Mm,
If the person's saying, okay, I really want to conquer this past. The only way I can conquer this past is I got to get my heart open. And if I do get my heart open, once my heart begins to open and I can take it out of the body out of survival, it's going to tell the brain the event is over. I'm in. Now we work with Navy SEALs, Special Ops, Green Berets, and we work with PTSD. You tell a Navy SEAL, you open your heart, you're just going to reset the baseline for trauma in your brain. They don't say, how do you do that? They're like, yes, sir. Like, that's the answer. And they go for it. And they see their past from a greater level of consciousness. They see it, even people who have been molested, they see their betrayers, their violators from a level of love. And they just like, oh my God, I understand them. And that's not me anymore. And they're free. And they're literally, that's when the endometriosis goes away. That's when the depression goes away. That's when the night terrors go away. The heart tells the brain it's over, right? So reason it, right? So do I want love? And love, the heart is the creative center. It's telling the brain to get creative when energy moves in there. That's when we can see possibilities that we can't see when we're living by those other emotions. It's a different consciousness. And
yeah.
so if we labor for that, whatever the story is, you only get to tell the story when you overcome it. When you overcome it, there's wisdom because the memory without the emotional charge is called wisdom. And now you no longer belong to the past. The soul goes, okay, the adventure begins. I've freed myself from the past. What next? What's the next experience? People begin to reason that. Then they're less concerned about the event, the circumstance, the person. They're more concerned about overcoming the emotion. Because when you do overcome the emotion, when we master our emotions, we master our creations. And that's when a person no longer is tormented any longer. They're free to begin to create something new.
Yeah, I guess as you were explaining that, it made me realize like one of my biggest things was I didn't think I was strong. So God sent me many, many, many ways for me to realize, oh, I'm stronger than I could ever have imagined. And, maybe stronger than anyone I know. Who knows? But now I
You
know
would
I'm strong.
listen, and I've admired you for that. I'm always like when we've texted back and forth, or we've talked, or I've seen you on events. I've always been, wow, she is really, really a very strong person. You adapt. It makes sense to you. You're totally transparent. You're very honest, very sensible, and you like go. And I've always admired that.
Thank
And that's
you.
what it takes. That's exactly what it takes. So that belief is actually not the truth. You reconciled. Now that on your journey as a soul, that is not the truth. You actually can stand in your power and without entitlement or arrogance or
Yeah.
self-centeredness. No, I am strong. Like I am strong. I know that I am. You know that you know. And I think that no one can take that away from us. And everybody's got a story. I mean, pick your heart. Everybody's got
Yeah.
one. But when we overcome the past, when we overcome that story, that's when you get to tell it. That's when the triumph of
No.
overcoming whatever that is, what the soul is after. And you know, there's numerous opportunities in one lifetime to choose love instead of fear. There's numerous opportunities in our lifetime to choose gratitude and appreciation instead of judgment and resentment. There's numerous opportunities for us to practice that, and you'll never know the benefits from it until you actually practice it, because the rest is just theoretical, philosophical, information.
So when someone hurts you in your life now, I mean, someone is jealous, screwing over your business, or stealing from you, or whatever, do you go to love?
I always do. I feel sorry for them. There's a certain amount of forgiveness that I may have to go through with myself and trusting that person, or knowing better. I think that's an ongoing, process of discovery. But I think that the love that we withhold is the pain that we experience lifetime after lifetime. That's
Ooh,
my belief. So no person, no circumstance is worth it if you're truly on the journey. And I think if we could teach our children that, being able to shorten their emotional responses and understand that they actually can control them. Because when you're in the midst of it, you really don't think you have any control over your emotions. In fact, your emotions are telling your brain all kinds of horrible things that are not the
yeah.
truth. And if we act or react during that time when we're emotionally out of balance, we'll always say the same thing. I should have never said that. I should have never thought that. I should have never done that. I should have never sent that text. I should have never sent that email. Because there's a gap between the way things appear and the way things really are when we're altered in that state. So remove the layers, remove the masks, remove the programs, remove the blocks, the conditioning. And all of a sudden, I think a light begins to shine through a person, and it's not hard for them to feel love. In fact, what I want for our participants is that at the end of 7 days, I want them to have such elevated levels of oxytocin that it's impossible to hold a grudge. Like you're good. Like hey, like forgiveness is no longer like I'm going to forgive you. Today's August 20th. I'm going to forgive you. It's not like that. When you're free from the emotion, you're good. You're like, look, whatever. I'm over it. That's forgiveness. It's overcoming the emotion. So I want people to live in that state and know the difference. Oh my God, I'm out of it. I've lost it. Okay, I just need 15 minutes to get back in my heart. I know there's 1,000 reasons why you shouldn't. I know, and it's that person's fault. All of that. That basically is buying into a program that we're victims. That person or that circumstance is
Yes.
actually controlling the way I feel and the way I think. I'm giving my power, my attention, my life force to that
Yes.
person. That person's not worth it. I'm going to regulate, get back here. I'm going to lower the volume to that emotion. And if it takes me 10 times to get in my heart, I think when it's the hardest, it matters the most. Because anything past that is going to be easy. Anything past
Yeah.
that point, you'll be able to execute with a greater level of consciousness and awareness.
I think a lot of us get in these situations where something happens, you're triggered, someone's done something that was not cool. And I think we really want to be right. And so then you build a story to make sure that you are outwardly right. I was at dinner with my little cousin. He was telling me about his new job. And he was like, this happened. He's like, but I learned I don't need to be right. And he's 22 or whatever. And I go, wow, thank you for that. Because what a lesson that we all need. Like, we don't always need to be right. Now, one of my things that I'm really grateful for is that I can see both sides. And that's helped me with empathy for people. So now, yes, I'll get hurt. It'll take me a minute to get there, but I'll be able to see, well, they're just insecure, or they are in a lower consciousness state. They are not ahead on their journey, let's say, and I can see where they're at and why they made those choices. But it's definitely hard. But if we can release the need to be right, that's obviously very helpful.
Basically, we're reaffirming the need to be right is reaffirming our emotional state. We're looking
Mm.
for emotional agreement. Just give me a little agreement. I'm suffering. Don't you agree with me? This is the reason I'm suffering, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's, that's a program as well. So yes, I think it's look, I react. The question really is how long?
How
That's really
long?
how long are you going to keep that going? You know better, dude. You know
Yeah.
better. You know better. And even though you don't want to do it because it's so addictive and you're righteous about it, um, it turns out if you practice that, you'll actually stay healthier.
Yeah, and the practices are so important. Obviously, I want to get into some of the meditations. You've got some new ones out too, but one of the practices I implemented at night was, what did I do that was loving to me today and what wasn't? Where did I go unconscious? Because it's so easy for the day to go by and you only think of the bad. And I celebrate my wins. What was great? So what did I do that was loving for me? But when you stop and you think about it, you're like, oh yeah, that was not cool. I kind of jumped to judgment there or whatever. Like, what a great practice. So you can catch yourself before you create these patterns or before you let something get away with. Now the next day you're talking about it again, and the next day you're now dealing with a new thing that's been created from your
Yeah,
misunderstanding, perhaps.
yeah. Well, that's a great. I mean, that idea came from the morning and evening meditations that we've produced, and it's probably some of the most popular meditations that we do because
Hmm.
really what it is to get your brain and body right at the beginning of the day. Who am I not going to be, and who am I going to be? Let me remind myself of the thoughts, behaviors, and emotions that's part of my old personality that I have to stay conscious of the whole day. And let me just remind myself of who I do want to be. And let me just review the thoughts, the beliefs, the behaviors. How am I going to behave? How am I going to feel? Let me feel this, and you get in that state. And then the game's on, right? You got one lifetime, you got one day, right? And that was one of the things if I discovered in my own journey that if I was really into the process of change, the only way that I could actually get better is that nobody's going to tell me, hey, you did this in the middle of the day. There's nobody, who's observing you like a video and saying, here, look what you did here. There's no feedback. You have to be kind of the Lord of your creation, right? So at the end of the day, you got to ask, when did I fall from grace? Like, when did I lose love? Like, what circumstance? What condition? Was it that person? Was it that circumstance? What happened? Okay, another lifetime tomorrow, another day. So if I had this, I used to do this with my kids for years. I'd say, forget about the event. I don't care who did what. I just want to know if you had another opportunity to take that on again, another chance, what would you do differently? Let's think about this and let's review it enough times so when it comes up, you evolve, right? So if you're in
Yeah.
the game of evolution, um, you have to be your own coach. I mean, you don't need a coach. You are your coach. You have to go, let me hold myself accountable. Like, really? You were here for what? Because some person said what or something. What? That's the extent of your emotional intelligence? No, I got to go back tomorrow. I want, and you got to get to the point where you're so primed. You're like, I want it. I'm ready for it. That's where you want to be. And I think that accelerates our evolution when we have that kind of self-awareness. It's much better than scrolling at the end of your day or getting on the phone and complaining with somebody or whatever. Sit in front of TV watching Netflix. There's so many other ways to evolve our understanding of ourselves. And I do think that when we understand ourselves, we understand others. And so it's
Hmm.
and I think the only other thing I want to say about this is that it has to fall outside of the paradigm of right and wrong, of good and bad, of success and failure. Like that polarity is what can get people trapped. Like, I'm doing this to be good. I'm doing this to succeed. No, that's not it. We're doing it to stay conscious and to move closer to love. That's the journey here. And how much more love is there? I don't know, but it's a whole lot more than we're experiencing. So the assessment at the end of the day is holding yourself accountable in one lifetime. and stay so conscious that if you had another lifetime, you would want to evolve that experience. And I think that is what causes people to accelerate their evolution.
Well, and also it's like the feeling that you want to have. Like, how do I want to feel every day? And most of us aren't feeling great. And that's why these meditations are so important, because they give you that opportunity to kind of recognize where you're going wrong and kind of figure out where you want to go. And it's that daily companion to keep you on track. So, with the meditations, like if someone's new to this, and you had to prescribe something to them. Like for me, when I'm like, okay, you're starting with Dr. Joe, you got to do the formula. You do the formula, then you move on to the progressive course. And then, there are meditations within, and then eventually you'll start picking your other ones. I love the morning and the evening, because I really love bookending my day like that. But what do you prescribe to people? And I know you have some new ones too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm weird in that way. I really I think that um, I would never prescribe a meditation without giving people the understanding of what they're doing. I think it's really important to demystify the process. And we've discovered that the more people understand what they're doing and why they're doing it, the how gets easier, and they can assign meaning. Assigning meaning to the act, it allows us to produce a greater outcome. The frontal lobe switches on and it wants the outcome. So if a person is unfamiliar with my style of meditations, or the words that I use and the music that I use, yeah, I think it's really important for them to expose themselves to information. So yeah, the formula is a great way to get tuned up. The progressive workshop, we have a new one now. We just released a new one that's from Barcelona from last year. Um, Anything that gives people the instruction before the meditation, I think is really, really valuable. So like if you, like the new meditations that we have one called Out Picturing that I did with an artist named Milan. And it's just a simple understanding that the consciousness of any new reality, the awareness of any new possibility, the dream that's fixed in the mind and held in the heart of anything, any circumstance, any condition is the actual thing, that the thought is the thing. And so if you keep practicing, you'll start to outpicture abundance or health or freedom or joy in your life. So again, there's always an introduction that helps people to engage in the meditations. There's ones that are 15 minutes, there's ones that are 20 minutes, there's 30 minutes, there's hours, there's hour and 20 minutes, there's 2 hours. It's just, where people, find their groove. But I want to set people up for success in the process. So I try to be as methodical as possible to reason with people so that when they sit down to do it, they can get a benefit from it.
What do you say to people who say this isn't science, it's more spirituality, and that prayer works the same way?
Gosh, I'd say in some way you're right, but I now know that you can't call this pseudoscience. We have the largest database in the world on change and transformation, on meditation, in every single time, in every single experiment that we do. We just did 7 experiments in Denver at our week long in July. Every single experiment we do proves that the human nervous system can manufacture a pharmacy of chemicals that works better than any drug. That's what our data shows. So you can't call it pseudoscience any longer. And I'm not saying that. I'm not even saying that's what the data is saying. The data
Mm-hmm.
is saying that. I'm just repeating what the data is saying. And I say to the scientists who are all skeptics, is the data greater than we think? And they always say 100%. And I say that must mean we're greater than we think because we're studying people. We're not studying monks or nuns
Mm.
and 40 years of devotion. We're studying common people like you and I. If the data is greater than we think, then we are greater than we think. And
Oh,
and
chills.
and so like a pharmaceutical study is about 25% effective. Like 1 out of 4 people get a response, and it usually is 90 days, 60 days, a year, 6 months. In 7 days, our data is 77% of the population, 80% of the population, 84% of the population, 90% of the population, 95% of the population, 100% of the population is manufacturing endogenous opiates at the end of 7 days. It's working
And their
way.
IgA goes up.
IgA goes up, everything goes up. So I have the data. We have the data to suggest that we've been programmed into believing that we need something outside of us to change our internal state. And what we're saying is actually you can do it without anything outside of you. And I think there's an enormous amount of power
Mhm.
um, when we take responsibility for regulating our own states. And in the beginning, it's a little bit turbulent because you have to figure it out. But I'm as a person, I am blown away at what I've witnessed in terms of stage testimonials in the last 2 years. It's changed my belief in what's possible. I never thought that I would be seeing these people stand on the stage. Some of them have never even came to a week-long event. They picked up the book, they read the book, and they applied the meditations on their own. They taught themselves how to heal. And one of the consistent things that I noticed in every single one of those people is that they had to come to the understanding, yeah, I believe that this stuff is real or that it works. I just didn't believe that it could work for me. And that is like a big moment. Like I got to show up then. And it took them 7 months, or it took them 9 months, or it took them 13 months, or it took them a year. But they never missed a day, because if they did, then they would stop believing in themselves. So the consistency in the process of change has led to them. We even have language specialists that study the language of transformation, and people who truly change all say the same thing. No, 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 no. No, I'm not that person any longer. There's a sense of temporality. That's the old me. That's the old person. I'm somebody completely. The disease belongs in that person. I'm completely different. And the temporality says that they've actually changed. So there is a measure of showing up for yourself where we have to really be consistent, and you have to apply it to the point where when you finish your meditation, you believe in your future more than you believe in your past. And we discovered that if you don't overcome yourself, you'll probably believe in your past more than you will your future. So it's that practice
Mm.
over and over again.
What's been your most profound testimonial as
Oh
a
my God.
I know there's so many because every time I'm there, I'm like, my jaw's open, but there might be someone that's popped up that I haven't seen.
Yeah, there was a woman that came to an event. She's probably in her late 60s, early 70s, that had colorectal cancer, and it's a aggressive cancer, and the only surgical procedure for it is to remove the rectum and the colon. And the moment you take that part of your body away, you lose your dignity, because you're basically either living with a bag or you're on the toilet. Um, Hundreds of times in one day. And this woman was literally strapped to her bedroom, and was depressed, couldn't sleep, wanted to commit suicide. There's no hope for someone like that because they physically remove the colon. Now, I know this is crazy, and it's hard. It was hard for me to accept it until I saw the scan. She said, "I'm going to grow my colon back," and
Oh, I'm gonna cry.
it was a very rough journey for her, but the doctors told her, you're out of your mind at your age. At your age, you're never going to get better.
So they
And
had
she,
already removed it.
oh yeah, it was gone. And they removed her colon, and she was, as I said, she was living next to her toilet because she could not control. She had no bowel control, right? And again, just as somebody that just wasn't going to accept that diagnosis. And every day she just kept imagining that colon growing back. And she said to me, I did your meditations either on the toilet, or I couldn't finish the meditation. And within 2 minutes, I had to go sit on the toilet. That's how I started. And then she said, one day I went through the entire meditation without having to use the toilet. And she said, that's all I needed. That's all I needed. I didn't care if I was growing my colon back or not. I just knew that something changed. And I did it with more belief, with more passion. She said, whatever I was doing, I was going to keep doing it. And then she started noticing that she was able to control her bowels a little bit more. And then she came to a week-long event. She had never left her house. She was so nervous that she wasn't going to be able to sit through the lectures or through the meditation. She went through a week-long retreat. She sat through the entire week-long retreat in San Diego, never had to use the bathroom during a lecture or a meditation. And of course, this is a change, right? She's changing. She went back to the doctor and she had grown. They took out 8 millimeters of her colon, 9 millimeters of her colon, and she had grown 5 millimeters back when they did the scan, but she kept going. Anyway, at the
There's
end,
more.
yeah. So then she went on for another year, kept going, and that she stood on the stage last year in our last event in December in Cancun, and she had grown 10 centimeters back, and she had 9 removed. And I saw the scan, like a beautiful, opalescent, juvenile, regenerated, fresh, new colon, like in rectum. And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. And I watched the testimonial, I don't know how many times, but I kept saying to myself, what does that mean? Like, what does that mean? Like the octopus, the salamander, what does this mean? It means that the human body has the innate capacity to regenerate itself at any age if it's given the right information. And she was able to actually give the right information to her body over and over again. And just like the salamander, just like the octopus, she got an extra centimeter back than was removed. And it wasn't scarred tissue or degenerative tissue, it was brand new tissue. And those are the kind of things we're seeing people grow thyroids back. Yeah,
So
she's
that's
done.
just like, to me, the beauty of believing in possibility. Like I always say, our worst kind of attribute is that a lot of us are so committed to the diagnosis and committed to what that person in the lab coat tells us our statistics are and whatever, that we just forget that anything is possible. So anytime someone's newly diagnosed with something, you're the first person that I recommend to them, because it is about possibility. Like anything is possible. You read Radical Remission, you read the placebo effect. Was it the placebo effect? Am I
You
crazy?
are the placebo.
You are the placebo. You see that the nurses, when they ran out of morphine, they were injecting soldiers with saline, and the soldier believed he was getting morphine and they were able to operate on them.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy what our minds are capable of. And I just, I think that's part of, why I'm still here and doing well, is because I believe anything is possible. Like I believe I'm going to be completely healed of everything. I just have to keep doing the right things to support that.
Absolutely. And the person who stands on the stage who has grown her colon back, there's there's always enough people in the audience that are struggling with their health condition, and they're looking at this woman. She doesn't look vegan. She's not dressed well. She doesn't look particularly, in shape. You'd walk past her at Whole Foods, and wouldn't even recognize her. But she's the example of truth, and everybody is leaning in because they're listening to the truth. It's
Mhm.
unbelievable. And it's the 4 minute mile. And
Yep.
just like an infection spreads amongst the community and creates disease, all of a sudden you see health and wellness become as infectious as disease. And we had one event where we had 5 people step out of a wheelchair with 5 different independent conditions: spinal cord injury, myasthenia gravis, MS, just all these different conditions, because it's a footprint in consciousness. And the person's invariably going to say, if they can do it, I can do it as well. And that's exactly how you begin to change the collective consciousness. The collective becomes conscious of another possibility. And you can't have consciousness without energy. And that literally begins to change the energy of possibility in the room, and people only do the best with what they think is available. And if you don't know that to be the truth, you'll make the same choice. But once you know now, all of a sudden, and you're seeing like we don't have just a few stories of transformation. I think we're in the thousands now. I mean,
Hmm.
we have so many stories. I mean, and for a lot of people, that's their hope. They watch the stories of transformation and they have to listen to it over and over again. We had some young kid that came to an event with muscular dystrophy. I mean, look it up in the internet. They'll tell you there's no cure. He was in a wheelchair. He was a young guy. And he left the event walking. Like I mean, I had to watch that testimonial 50 times. I had to watch it
Yeah.
over and over again because just the joy in his face and just how he was so excited and how he was out of his wheelchair and walking around and smiling. Like I mean, who knows what's possible?
Yeah. I just think that, what you believe will be. And if you believe in that possibility, it does require work. And that's the hard part is it requires you to have to work on you. And a lot of us don't have time for that. It's
Yeah.
like we have very busy lives, but if you want it bad enough, it's possible. And those testimonials are the 4 minute mile because you're like, wait, she grew back a colon. He just got out of a wheelchair. Like, what's my issue? Like, I can fix my stuff. There's
Yeah.
no way. But it requires, commitment.
Yeah, and that's the other thing that I also learned, and because I interview all these people backstage before they go on, I ask them, "How'd you do it?" And some of them said, "Look, I was doing my meditations 2 or 3 times a day," and I'm like, "Why?" And they're like, "Well, because the chemo wasn't working, the radiation didn't work, the drug trials didn't work, the surgeries didn't work, the diets didn't work, the ketogenic, the organic, gluten-free, vegan, none of that worked." And they realized that nothing's changing until I change, right? And they were doing it over and over again because every day because they lost their belief in the middle of the day. They started doubting. They
Mm,
defaulted and they were like, oh, this isn't working. And they were like, no, 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 I've got to change this. So they went back in. And when they finished their meditation, they got up believing more in their future instead of less in their future. And
mm.
that was that kind of that sense of self renewal. Even when their values, some of them, their values got worse. They got worse, and they just
Yeah.
stayed with it. They stayed with it. And then, you turn the battleship around and they were patient with themselves and, they were working on staying in homeostasis and they're watching their reactions. And again, the small change, like the small change they notice, like, I'm going to keep doing this because it did that. I'm going to keep doing it with more belief. And then there's another change in your belief. Yeah, and it grows even more. And that's exactly how you climb out.
I love it. I love it, love it, love it. It's very powerful work and I think that I know you have examples of people that are able to do it without coming to an event, but there's obviously nothing that compares to being immersed in the work, immersed in your teachings, and the vibration of a room where everyone wants to be better and everyone is at different levels. But you can also, I call it cheating because when I'm there, I'm with people who are like super powerful meditators that you can rise with them and have an incredible experience that I haven't been able to mimic at home. But when I'm there with the super meditators, it's like you're playing tennis with, Serena Williams. You're going to play a lot better because you're playing with her.
Yeah.
So the immersion is really powerful. And I feel like every time I go, I level up in a whole other way and just, realizing that I have this incredible field and I'm choosing how I program it every day has made me more aware to choose wisely and choose well and that love does really work.
Heals everything.
Yeah. All right. I just want to thank Dr. Joe Dispenza, as always, for joining us today. It was incredible. And friends, if you loved it too, please share with a friend or 20. I think everybody needs to hear his message. And we also have more info about Dr. Joe's meditations and retreats, like his upcoming Nashville week-long retreat on September 14th through the 20th. You can also score $400 off of it. And we've got details about that in our show notes below. And don't forget, Patreon members, we also have a bonus episode with Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's giving us all his meditation secrets that you don't want to miss. So don't forget to check our show notes about his upcoming week-long retreat that you can get $400 off of. And until next time, be nice people, make good choices, and be present. Heal Squad, we have been on quite the journey together, and we're hearing from so many of you just how much this show is helping you heal and get better, and it makes us feel so good. We love, love, love it, and we just ask that you don't keep it to yourself. Spread the message and share the show or your favorite episode with your friends. And if you want to help us even more, you can leave us a 5-star rating and a comment on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and follow us on Instagram at Heal Squad. You can also DM us anytime because we love connecting with you. And finally, you can also join us on Patreon for our monthly live heal events with world-class healers and ad-free episodes exclusive only to Patreon and our Super Heal Squad for as little as $10 a month. So go to patreon.com/Heal Squad to join. Getting better isn't easy, friends, but as I say all the time, it's a whole lot easier if we can do it together. We love you all so much, and we love doing this thing called life with you.
This podcast and all related content published or distributed by or on behalf of Maria Menounos or MariaMenounos.com is for informational purposes only and may include information that is general in nature and that is not specific to you. Any information or opinions expressed or contained herein are not intended to serve as or replace medical advice, nor to diagnose, prescribe, or treat any disease, condition, illness, or injury, and you should consult the healthcare professional of your choice regarding all matters concerning your health, including before beginning any exercise, weight loss, or healthcare program. If you have or suspect you may have a healthcare emergency, please contact a qualified healthcare professional for treatment. Any information or opinions provided by a guest expert or host featured within website or on company's podcast are their own, not those of Maria Menounos or the company. Accordingly, Maria Menounos and the company cannot be responsible for any results or consequences or actions you may take based on information or opinions.